Before starting this video, I do want to give a thank you to my patrons that support the channel. And if you would like to support the channel, there are some great benefits for you in the link down below. So with that, let's get into today's video. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG. So today with this deck, I wanted to combine all the elements of good in Lord of the Rings and make it with Aragorn the Uniter. So he is a 4-mana commander, and on top of that has 4 different abilities whenever you cast something. For example, whenever you cast a white spell, you create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Whenever you cast a blue spell, you scry 2. Whenever you cast a red spell, Aragorn Uniter deals 3 damage to target opponent. Whenever you cast a green spell, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. So in a way, we cast our spells, they kind of become a super type. When you cast something, you get an extra benefit with Aragorn the Uniter. Honestly, this is a fantastic commander, one I may consider building myself. I know I say that about almost every other commander, but this one is absolutely incredible value. But what's really getting me excited about this commander is it's more of a multicolored spells matter deck when you think about it. When you cast something that, say for example, has Naya colors in it, you'll have 3 of those modes where you have that white ability, that green ability, and also that red ability. So with more colors you do play, the more super types you get with Aragorn the Unifier. I mean the Uniter. There's been so much Uniters or Unifiers that are coming out with Joda Unifier and Atraxa Grand Unifier. There's another Uniter with Aragorn. So hopefully I don't mess up on it too much. So that does beg the question, which cards are we uniting against the forces of Mordor? Of course we're uniting the Fellowship of the Ring. This will also have a little bit of a legendary theme. That's why one of the best cards in this deck would be Gandalf the White. He does have flash, and you may cast legendary spells and artifact spells as though they had flash as well. And on top of that, if a legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaving the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers additional time. Wait, so you're telling me you can cast spells as though they had flash as a combat trick for Aragorn? And on top of that, you get a double one of or many of those effects that Aragorn has on his ability. This is an absolute powerhouse in the deck, no question about it. Another card I did want to mention is Boromir, Warden of the Tower. So for 3 mana, he does have Vigilance. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, that counter that spell. And on top of that, very flavorful, you can sacrifice him and creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn, and the ring tempts you. And gosh, that flavor text, farewell Aragorn, go to Minas Tirith and save my people. Absolutely a beautiful card. I did also want to bring up Gimli and also Legolas. So with these 2 cards, they're actually pretty great in the deck. Mainly if we cast Gimli, we get 2 effects off of Aragorn. He could get indestructible as long as 2 or more creatures died under your control this turn, and on top of that, he does get a counter on him whenever another creature you control dies, and it can be great removal. And Legolas is pretty neat. Whenever you cast a spell that targets him, you put a 1/1 counter on him, and on top of that, he could be great removal as well. Obviously, if you do have both of these on the battlefield at the same time, you need to make a mini game which one deals more damage to creatures so that you can get a head count who wins with Legolas or Gimli. We do have others in our company like Merry, Esquire of Rohan, and Pippin, Guard of the Citadel. Merry does have haste, and whenever you attack with Merry and another legendary creature, you draw a card. Of course, we have a big legendary sub-theme in this deck, so we definitely want to include this one in here. Pippin does also have Vigilance and Ward 1, and also has a tap ability. Another target creature you control gains protection from a card type of your choice until end of turn. That's great protection just for 2 mana. And these halflings are incredibly cheap, so when we do cast them, we could trigger Aragorn twice. We have 2 more members in the Fellowship of the Ring with Samwise Gamgee and Frodo Determined Hero. Sam has a decent ability of sacrificing 3 food tokens, return target historic card from your graveyard to your hand. That includes artifacts, legendaries, or sagas. He does also provide a great ability to make food tokens. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you create a food token. There's a lot of legendary creatures that are coming on the battlefield and non-token creatures, of course. Also with Frodo Determined Hero, he is pretty good. Whenever he does enter the battlefield or attack, he may attach target equipment you control to with mana value 2 or 3 to Frodo. As long as it's your turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to Frodo. I couldn't really really add some of the other Frodos, mainly because they're not matching the color identity of Aragorn. So we do have the Fellowship of the Ring established. What are some other Lord of the Rings characters we want to put into the deck? There's a lot of them that actually would make sense because we want to be an aggressive shell. So for example, Éomer, Marshal of Rohan is absolutely fantastic. It does have haste, and whenever one or more attacking legendary creatures you control dies, untap all legendary creatures you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. This ability only triggers once each turn. So kind of like Gimli in a weird fashion, whenever a legendary creature dies, they have that ability. So obviously you have cards like Boromir that sacrifices itself to get an ability. But again, there's a lot of different variations. This is a great card to get some extra combats and some extra damage in. We also could bring in Éowyn, Fearless Knight. She does have a great ability of entering the battlefield, exiling a target creature an opponent controls with greater power. Legendary creatures you control gain protection from each of that creature's colors until end of turn. What I do especially like about it is the fact that it exiles a target creature, but it's exiled permanently. It's not until end of turn. Only legendary creatures you control gain protection of those type. So this is an absolute great removal piece in the deck. I did also want to bring up Galadriel, Gift Giver. For 5 mana, she has that ability. When it enters the battlefield or attacks you, choose one, put a 1/1 counter on another target creature, create a food token, or you create a treasure token. So she does have that great ability of ramping us, or if we want to make a food token, or if we want to buff up our team a little bit more. So it is very fitting of her name being a Gift Giver, giving us one of these 3 options when she attacks. I did also want to discuss multicolored spells, mainly because we could get multiple triggers off of Aragorn, so of course we want to get that advantage, but why not get some other advantage pieces like Hero of Precinct 1 and also mana cannons. You can make some more tokens with Hero of Precinct 1 whenever you cast a multicolored spell, and on top of that with mana cannons, it could be a great removal spell whenever you're casting those multicolored spells, because there's definitely a good amount of multicolored spells in the deck. I did also want to bring up Bard class, mainly because we are in a little bit of a legendary theme, and it does have multicolors. It does have 3 levels. We could buff up our team, make our creatures cost less, and on top of that, whenever we cast a legendary spell, we could exile the top 2 cards of our library and then cast them that turn. This is just providing so much great value, especially when we level up more and more. I did also want to bring up Riain, Angel of Rebirth. It's a Naya commander, so again, we'll get 3 different triggers from Aragorn, and it does have great abilities of flying. Other multicolored creatures you control get +1/+0, and whenever another multicolored creature you control dies, return it to the owner's hand and at the beginning of the next end step. So I don't know why with Gimli and also with Éomer, we want legendary creatures dying. We can return them back to our hand when they do die, so overall, definitely a great fit for sure. I did also want to bring up a combo for the deck so that you could close out the game if you want to, especially when games are going long. And it is also fitting because we could win with our commander on the spot with this combo. So with this combo, you will have Aragorn on the battlefield with Dockside Extortionist and Temur Sabertooth. So essentially what you could do is cast Dockside Extortionist, you could put it back to your hand with Temur Sabertooth. As long as you're mana positive, you could then recast Dockside Extortionist over and over again with Temur Sabertooth, putting it back to your hand. Aragorn will see Dockside constantly being cast, and then you'll deal 3 damage to everybody in the face so that you can win the game. This also could be achieved with Cloudstone Curio, or with the new Lord of the Rings version, Elisar the Elfstone. You can cast Dockside Extortionist with Elisar the Elfstone on the battlefield. You will return something else on the battlefield to your hand, and then you can keep on going back and forth with Dockside as long as you're mana positive. Because Aragorn sees Dockside coming back on the battlefield back and forth when you cast him, you can then deal 3 damage to a target opponent until everybody's dead. However, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Aragorn the Uniter. This is a pretty fantastic commander. The more times I've looked at it, the more powerful it does get. I could see this being a pretty popular and pretty powerful commander, and could be a great combo enabler like I just mentioned with previous cards. However, let me know down below, how would you build Aragorn the Uniter? Is there a different way you would approach Aragorn the Uniter? Let me know down below in the comments again. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.